name is Cindy Hurtado, and I am from Peru. In the Pampas cat working group, we work to protect the Pampas cat as well as other co-occurring species of small wild cats, and we focus on threat mitigation. And those activities are generally building chicken coops, dog vaccination and sterilizations to reduce the spread of disease to wild cats. We also have roadkill programs and environmental education activities. Kind of our big project that we're really proud of is the one that we have in Cajamarca in Peru. And our colleague Zoila went there to ask, like if there was any conflict. Almost 90% of the people in the community responded to they had killed at least one Pampas cat in their lifetime. Because they are people that live in extreme poverty, and their livelihood is just depends on their chickens, that their way, like to support their families, and they don't really have much income to create, like chicken coops. And people generally don't really think about that. It's not like the first things that comes to mind. So we realized that there was this huge problem. We started with the chicken coops, and at first people were like a little hesitant. And then once these were built, we had a couple of problems, like the chickens were not really adapting to being enclosed because they are like generally used to being free. But then after we provided each family with farm chickens, then those farm chickens are more used to like being in an enclosure. So they started to reproduce, had eggs, and have chicks. And then from that point, and that we work with 44 families as our pilot project. And after 2 years, none of them have reported any loss of chickens, any other killing that had occurred because of, like predation of poultry or their chickens.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, we think that it's a one-time thing that we can do, and then it's a long-term effect that we can have. It depends on the family, but it will be like an average of 8 chickens to up to 15. And they generally either lose them all in one time and they have to go get new ones. But yeah, it's not really like a huge amount, like a small farm or anything. It's more for their own consumption. Sometimes it's just, like 4 sticks and then a roof. And that doesn't really provide any safe space for the chickens, but it's just what they consider a chicken coop. So there's less of fixing, more of building the entire thing. But we learned that if each family provides some support, so if we don't build it like 100% us, if they provide adobe or some type of a structure that they can get on their own, like wood or something that is available in their areas, then we provide the mesh and then the roof, which is generally harder to get in rural areas. And generally, it depends on the area because sometimes they're really far from places where you can get these things, and the logistic cost to bring the materials increases the cost. But I think it's around $400 to $500 per chicken coop. But this also includes new chickens. It includes workshops that we give each family about how to care for the chicken. So like we give workshops of vaccinations, and we also have like a first aid kit for the community. So then they don't have to go to the city to buy the medicine for their chickens. So one family has all of the medicine already, and then people just buy a small dosage that they need for each of their chicks if there's something going on. And then once the medicine runs out, then they can replenish it by buying it from like the city or wherever it's available. So we provide that. And then the idea is that after we provide the first aid kit, then they can just replenish it by themselves by buying small dosages when they need it. So we work in several where we have a rough estimate of where pampas cats, we did some DNA analysis in the mangrove of Piura, Peru, which is an area of 4 square kilometers of mangrove forest. So it's a really small patch of mangrove. Our genetics analysis based on scat samples from latrines, we found 7 animals in that patch, but it's really hard to count the number of cats and estimate populations. So for the other areas, yes, and we need either genetic analysis or camera traps, like really good camera traps to actually take photos of the spots. The camera traps that we have are not the greatest, so sometimes it's really hard to identify that. So we are prioritizing our funds to threat mitigation activities instead of counting animals, just because we think it's money best invested.
I agree.
Yeah.
Let me say something, Carol. How many cats are in our nation's capital, Washington, D.C.? How many domestic cats? These are domestic cats that people have in their houses. World Wildlife Fund spent $1.5 million trying to figure that out and never came to an answer.
Wow.
How many domestic cats are in Tampa, Florida, where you live? We have no idea. And these are cats that we could count because they're in people's houses. But we don't know. We don't even have an estimate. We have maybe take the number of houses and multiply it by 70%. Plus, how many are running around out there in the woods? We don't know. And to ask if we can count wildcats, it's impossible. We can count tigers. We can count lions because they can't hide. You just drive around and count them. But how many servals are there? We have no idea. Caracals, African wildcat. Yet, we can count every lion. There are, in fact, 23,000 living lions.
So how do you
plus or minus 500?
How do you determine among these cats this rating of endangered, threatened, or
critically endangered? If it gets down to where you can count the number of individuals, like the Iberian lynx when there were 85, that's critically endangered, and it's too late. It's almost too late. We brought them back.
I was going to say another indirect way of counting cats. We could say how many have died by road kills or by retaliatory killings. So that's our measure. We don't know how many they are, but we can know how many we save. So we could say that in the last 10 years, or if we want to be conservative, in the last 5 years, at least 44 cats were killed because they were now chicken coops. Now we can say that until these chicken coops, still work, then we're saving 44 cats. That doesn't mean that it's in, the 1 year, because it was, across several years, but at least one generation, it's safe in this small patch. Now, if pampas cats are not finding chickens in this small area, either they have to go to native prey or they have to go to other villages. So that's why we want to move to the next town over, where they also have these problems. And we could do the same thing. We can estimate how many have they killed, and then by giving this activity or mitigation activity, then we can estimate how many we're saving.
And what kind of an annual budget do you work with?
For the Pampas Cat Working Group, we work on a $70,000, $80,000 budget. For the NGO that I represent in Peru, we work with like $15,000 to $20,000, and that covers Zoila, who's coordinating the project, and then that covers some administration things, and then the chicken coop program, the road program that we have, and that relies on people and it's online, so that's pretty cheap. And then that also covers environmental education. And now we're trying to get a concession to protect Pampas cat habitat, and that all those fees, like legal fees, are also covered by that budget that we have for this year.
So when you refer to the Pampas Cat Working Group, are you talking about the multi-country?
Yes.
And that so your local operation is the nonprofit that is only 15 to 20?
Yes.
And then, if you don't mind my asking, how do you live to pay your expenses? Does it have to come out of that, or do you do it everywhere?
No. So the only living expenses that go from that budget is Zoilas, she's the project coordinator in Peru. I have a job, a full-time job, and that covers my, yeah. And most of these other projects, so like the Pampas Cat Working Group, most of the leaders of those programs are volunteers. They have another job and they do this on their spare time. And we did that as well. Well, we've been doing that since 2017. But now, because the program is growing and we have so many activities and we have funders that support the projects, then we have Soila, who's like full-time paid. But I think she's the only one from the entire working group that gets a salary.
Well, kudos. What is your other job, by the way?
I am a carnivore conservation biologist for the British Columbia government, BC government in Canada. I'm in Canada.
In Canada.
I did my PhD in Canada, and then after that I was hired by the government.
Have you seen a shift in the people's attitudes toward the Pampas cat now that they are not losing chickens?
It's really amazing because most of our activities, they want to provide an impact for the cats, but most of the time we provide an impact for the families. They get more income and then they understand animals better. And then we have a WhatsApp group, for example, where it used to be the community sending photos or complaining about losing chickens, and they would send photos of dead chickens. But now it's the opposite. They send photos of, because they have camera traps, so they send photos of a Pampas cat it's outside, like outside of the chicken coop where the camera is. And now they also report when other people in their neighbors in other communities are also having this problem. So I think, yes. And even this was really nice because in this program, at the door of the chicken coop, they put one of the posters that we gave them that has like a big Pampas cat. So that's every time they go in the chicken coop, they see a big Pampas cat, right? Like that poster. So that was their own doing. Like we didn't ask them to do that. It was just a nice thing that we saw when we were there. And now we're trying to replicate that in Ecuador. They're doing this as well. So now, well, they're not Pampas cat in that specific area, but we're trying to do this with ocelots or any other cat. So then that keeps reminding them of the connection that you're getting this help because of the cats. Because sometimes people in rural communities are used to getting help from the government. So the first thing they ask us is if we're going to be applying for mayor or something like that. They think this is political. And then we tell them, no, this is not political. And then sometimes they don't make the connection. This is because of the cats. So we try to do this with environmental education workshops. But the best way we think we can do this is by having a reminder. And that's an idea that we got from this first community in Peru.
Wow. Do you provide the camera traps for them to see the animals that are coming to their chicken coops?
Yes. So we have cameras that rotate from the project. So we use them in one project for 2 or 3 months. And then because what we want is to see cats coming, but not getting any chickens, right? And we also know that because they are not losing any, but then that provides a nice way of showing cats are still here. It's not that they were all dead or they all died from something else. Cats are still here. They're coexisting with people. So that's the way of we kind of measure it.
Well, do people in that area tend to have a large enough piece of land to actually grow crops that would be a meaningful part of their diet?
Not for their diet, but for selling. So they grow tara, which is like a herb that they sell for a decent amount of money. They grow corn. It's different crops. Sometimes if somebody, like if they're building a new school, they will work as labor. So they take whatever job is available.
What is your biggest challenge to scaling this up?
Well, besides, like the money to make it happen, it's more people that actually want to join or to be like Soylas. We need more Soylas. She is amazing. She's been a volunteer for so long. That's why she deserves a paying job now. And then it's sometimes it's hard for the community to trust us. They have had previous experience with NGOs that tell them, we're going to go help you. They go for a year and then they leave. So having people that can do this for several years to get, like the message ingrained, it's really hard to achieve. We were in one place before in the mangrove. Now we moved to this other place and we're also going to another. So it's the lack of, like capacity or people that support all of those for the long term is one. And then building trust with people because we need that long term, like relationship, because they start trusting us and then we run out of funding and we leave, right? It's not because we want to, it's because, like now people are supporting other projects. So we just go somewhere else, right? What we would like with this chicken coop is for all of them to get like a cooperative or something similar where they can all put together the extra chickens they have and go sell them, right? And then they can live off of that by working together. But that will take time, and that's like kind of a long-term view for that chicken coop project. We could say like it's about 400 people or families in the entire district. But we cannot go and support half of the caserio because then we're giving the problem to the ones that didn't have any chicken coops, right? If we only help half, then the other half is left unprotected and they will start getting the problem. So that's why every time we move from one caserio to the next, we need to make sure that we have enough funds to help the entire caserio. At least the ones that want to, because there are some that they say, no, we don't want your help. And then as soon as they start seeing the results, then they want to join the program, which is fine. Like we take them too, right? But yeah, we sometimes need to know the numbers to get the funds.
And who actually does the construction?
The families do the construction. So we have in this caserio, so Zoila is from Piura, so she coordinates not only the chicken coop project but others. She goes there. There is a local person from the caserio who helps buy the chickens. He helps with the interviews. He knows everybody. So he takes us to each person. And then that person who's Adrian will go and check that they are building the chicken coop. They will check that they are doing it in the right way. And then he's the one that sends us photos. And then when Zoila goes again, she just makes sure that, like that it's working. She asks the people, like, what other, like problems have you seen and things like that.
And does each family build its own, or is it a community effort where neighbors pitch in and help?
No, each family builds their own. And the only community effort is the medicine that we have for the chickens. And the thing is that, so some families, as I said, when they don't build their chicken coop, is because generally the one that builds it is the guy or the man of the family. And then we've seen delays because that person is gone to work somewhere else. So they have everything. We go and we ask, why isn't your chicken coop built? And they said, because my brother is not here. My husband went to work. And that's the only case where we, like see that this hasn't happened.
Yeah, we don't tell the people how to fix their hen houses. Cindy Zoila shows them a video of a cat going in and out of hen houses stealing chickens. And the people see the video and they say, "Oh, my hen house needs a little bit of work." And there's no two hen houses on the planet the same. This is why we supply the materials, but we don't build it. Cindy, I'd like you to tell Carol about the Quechua Women for Conservation.
Yeah, so this is really exciting because, as I said, one of the hardest part of this job is to find someone committed to conservation. We generally look in biology students for conservationists. And Marinia is from Peru. Her native language is Quechua, which is a native language in Peru from the high Andes. And she loves cats. She's been involved in many biology research projects. I reached out to her and asked her if she wanted to be a conservationist. And of course, she was really interested, especially because it's cat related. A lot of people love cats. She's one of them. And the question that we've had a lot is, I don't know how to be a conservationist. So what we say is we give examples of other things or other projects that have been successful. So we told her, you can do chicken coops, you can do vaccinations, right? And but you need to ask the people what they want. So she went to her Ayacucho, which is in the Andes of Peru, to her town, and she started asking people about Andean cat and Pampas cats, and if there was any conflict, and what would the people need to help protect these cats. So they said that the weather there is really cold and their alpacas don't have a lot of food. So and then they also have chickens. So she said, okay, the chicken coop idea. But then she also found out that these pastures, if she could provide pastures for each family, then their alpacas would survive the winter. Because there's a type of cold resistance pasture that is hard to buy. So then she decided to start with that. We told her, you decide what you want to do. So she started that. And then she realized that the women are the most important part of the family because they're with the animals, they're with the kids, they're the ones that go with the alpacas, and they're the ones that see cats the most. So then she started working with the women and she created the Quechua Women for Conservation group. And she united all of the women of this community that is 30 families. And then they started to think about ways of conserving cats. So they started a program with camera traps. She showed these women, which, like, it's generally hard for us, like, people from Lima or the city to reach these women because we don't speak their language, right? But she was, like, she spoke Quechua, as a biologist, she's trained, she wanted to help. So she started this group and then she showed them how to use camera traps. They are now monitoring cats. They have painted murals that represent their daily lives. And in these murals, you can see the Quechua women with their like traditional clothes that they generally use in the Andes. And they also have the cats there. And what they want is in this NGO that they have created, the Quechua Women for Conservation, they want to do like embroidery or like use their skills, sewing skills and things like that to start making things to sell and just provide any extra income they can get for their own families, as generally is the men that just go out and find the money and things like that.
Wow, that's amazing. Really amazing.
It empowers them, right? Because women generally have a lower role, or that's what they think they have, like a lower role in their family because they don't provide any income. But now that Merinia has showed them the value of, like reporting these cats, this is an endangered cat, especially the Andean cat, then they feel or they know that the work they're doing is important. Maybe not to their husbands, but to a larger community of conservationists. And yeah, they're excited. They have many plans, and yeah, it's a really cool project to see.
They had their first meeting.
Yeah, I think they had more meetings already. And the good thing is that Merinia, they make their own decisions. They decide what they want to do. Merinia is just guiding them on like, and that's our role too. We try to support them in based on whatever experience we have on things that can work or things that they can test. But at the end, they are the ones that decide because they're the ones that need to be comfortable with the actions that they're doing. So yeah.
It sounds to me from the way you have described some of the people in the groups that you work with on the chicken coops that a very similar type situation could work as well, because you have all these women that are staying behind and they're the ones raising the kids and raising the animals. And so giving them a way of empowering themselves and feeling like what they're doing is meaningful, which I think is one of the most important things a person can feel, is that their life has meaning.
And we have a couple of chicken coops. I think only 4 people have chicken coops. The thing is that the chicken coops in the Andes need more building because it gets super cold. It gets really cold, so it's not just the mesh, it needs to be actually protected. So the alternative is guinea pigs. So there are a lot of because they need smaller areas. The guinea pigs don't need to be running around. But when we ask them what would you like, they are used to alpacas. They're used to having their alpacas. They take the wool, they sell it. So that's why we started with that, with the pastures. But yeah, the alpacas take a lot of time because they have to go with them.
Like
But
15,000
really
feet.
high. If we were, we could barely breathe.
14,000 feet.
Yeah. And imagine walking on these these hills, following your alpacas. That was really challenging. And
wow.
Yeah, but Marinia does it, and she goes visits them. She did her master thesis in this area, so that's why she knows the community, because she's been going there for 2 years at least. And that's when she decided to work with them, so she understands the local problems that any village has. But yeah, she's able to connect with these women, right? Not in the same way as any other person could. We're also vaccinating in Peru and in Ecuador. In Ecuador, there's this one NGO where they're part of the Pampas Cat working group, but where they work, there are no Pampas Cats. So it's a small remnant of the dry forest in Ecuador, western Ecuador. So in Ecuador, you have the big Amazon region, but then the dry forests, which are generally west of the Andes, those are endangered forests because there's a lot of humans and land conversion. So there's still some mountain range that has wild animals, pumas, margais, ocelots, and they're working on this region, on the buffer zone of this region. One of the big problems there is dogs. So feral dogs or domestic dogs that go only to the forest to feed and then they come back. So based on other people or other groups that work with cats, we realized that these dogs may be, spreading their diseases every time they go to the forest. So now we have, since 2022, so there's at least 3 years of vaccinations in the mountain range in Ecuador. They have vaccinated over 500 dogs. And in Loma Alta, that's the name of the community. They're moving from different communities around this forest. and they're vaccinated against rabies and 5 other diseases, hepatitis, parainfluenza, parvovirus, and I'm forgetting one extra. But yeah, they're doing this. We realized that when we start with vaccinations, the logical next thing is a sterilization or neutering. Because we cannot keep vaccinating forever, and every time we have new dogs that come in, but this vaccination helps us gain the trust of the people in the community to then go for neutering. Like every time we try to do neutering first, people feel hesitant. They feel like it's a surgery, that we're there to kill their dogs. So by doing these vaccination campaigns first, we earn the trust of the people, and then we can go on neutering. So for this, where we've been going for 3 years, now they're starting neutering campaigns. In February of this year, they neutered 30 dogs. I was telling them to aim for females because we don't have, like much funds. So we said prioritize females, but females are harder on the post-operatory or post-surgery process. It's harder for them to heal. So that makes it a bit challenging, especially in like these conditions where they're not like at a clinic. So yeah, it's been a process of learning, and based on these efforts in Ecuador, we're now moving that same idea to Peru, where we already have done many vaccination campaigns as well in at least 3 areas in Peru. One of them where the chicken coops are built. We also did vaccinations there. And now we're trying to learn from the people in Ecuador to apply that in Peru. So our aim is I think in 2 months, we're going to start the first as the neutering campaign for dogs in Peru.
Great. That's great.
Yeah, it's a bit stressful because we don't want to lose any dogs, right? And sometimes the dogs are not even healthy enough to go under surgery, and then we have to tell the owners, sorry, we cannot do this, right? And then they get upset. So it's a lot of dealing with emotions, right? Like people caring for their pet not being healthy, we cannot help them. But yeah, we're getting there.
So what is it that makes you get up every day and say, I'm going to fix this small cat problem?
I feel like I've learned so much across these years that if we don't do it, like who else would do it, right? Like it's a lot of people. If there was many soilas already, I'll be like, yeah, it's fine. I don't have to do this, right? There's already somebody doing it, which there are a lot of people, but we need so many more. So every time we go like to conservation conferences where we see people that are doing the same things, we get that energy, and that makes it, like valuable, right? We feel like, okay, we're not alone, even though it looks like we're not. There's a lot of people that are trying to make a difference. The first thing that we think about is if people are suffering to cover their basic needs, we cannot ask them to care about anything else. If they don't have food to care for their child, right? If they cannot cover their own roof, they will not care for cats, like no matter what I tell them, right? So that's like the one thing we try to fix. Like we show them this will help your problems now, right? So that's one strategy, because like these are families in extreme poverty. But then the other way, for people closer to cities, like we have in Piura, we try to make a connection, like, I don't know how to say it, but like a feeling, right? Like it's not, we can tell them 1,000 times numbers, we can give them numbers, we can give them projections, we can give them all the science. But if we show them the cat, or if we show them a story, right, that connects with their values, I think that will have a greater impact. So understanding what they value the most, whether if it's family, whether if it's, like, I don't know, freedom, right? If those are their values, then we can connect with them by showing how these, like these pampas cats are animals that, like, have feelings, have families, reproduce, and then they need to be free, right? So I think campaigns, like behavioral change campaigns that focus on people's values, can help make a difference, which it's a whole big project unto itself. But yeah, those are the things that we're thinking about. But, like the very first thing is like people need to be meeting their basic needs first, and then we can just try to show them. Everything is face to face. In these areas, there are barely schools that people can reach to, like kids can reach to. Some of them have to walk 6 to 5 hours to go to school. So it's really hard to get education in these areas. When they get messages and things like that, it's through radio, or like radio to reach a wider audience, or to meetings that they know that are happening every Sunday or every month, and that's how they know, like, like specific things, or that's how we reach out to them. But yeah, there's no social media now, because like having a smartphone is expensive. But in Peru now we use a lot this application called WhatsApp. So you don't need like a big or an expensive smartphone. So some of them have that. The lucky ones that have more income will have a smartphone, and we will connect with them, and then they will connect with the rest of the community.
That's good to know.
Yeah, and
Cindy Zoila, we pull into the community and we beat the horn. That's how people know.
we told them that's how we wanted to, like, give them the chickens. So everybody had their chicken coops. We need to ask, like, how do we do this, like in the shortest time possible, because we cannot go every door with like, here are the chickens, like it will take forever. So that's what we did. When we check the chicken coops, we will tell them, we're giving you chickens when you hear the horn. That's where we are. Just go get your chickens, right? So yeah, and that reminds me about the vaccination and sterilization campaigns. The cost of these really varies depending on the type of strategy we use. For example, we can call them all to the same place, but to do this, we need to like tell them in advance, several weeks. There's this vaccination happening this day, be at the plaza at like 10 a.m. The other way, which is more expensive but is the only option in areas or communities that have their houses really far apart, because they have their land that they grow, so they're not gonna go to bring their pet to a vaccination. We have to go to each place, each little house, and like, where are your dogs? We're vaccinating them. Do you want this? They say yes, then we do it. But that takes more time. It's more expensive. And then the other option that we haven't tried yet, but we think this will have the greatest impact, is if we go and capture these free-ranging dogs, the ones that don't have any owner. We vaccinate and we release. But this takes time to like get them trapped, get them vaccinated, and release. But these are kind of the three strategies that we generally consider when we are vaccinating.
Yeah, the feral dogs, Carol, they belong to no one and everyone. That's the problem. We can't get rid of them. And they're really protected.
If we want to, like, just euthanize them because they're sick, nobody cares for them, the community, it's against that. But none of them, like not a single person will take responsibility for the dog. So that's, the dog problem is really, really challenging in South America in general. Like, we have pet ownership is not really controlled. You can have 7 dogs if you want. You can have them in the street and only give them food through your door. Just, like throw them some rice. Like there's people always hanging out by their door, just talking, right? So they will quickly learn that going after kids will be way more costly than just going after, like other, like foxes or skunks or cats in the mangrove. That's what we saw. We saw some dogs harassing other native wildlife. We saw specifically with skunk and skunk babies. And yeah, it was a pack of 5 dogs. They were all different breeds, so it looked really funny. That's what they do. I would just say that anybody can help. Find a project or an activity that resonates with you, that you value the most, that you think that will have the most impact, and try to support it. And if you don't have the means, like to support it in, like a monetary way, I'm sure that you have other skills that can help support the conservation of cats.
That's a great general message. But as far as a message on how they can support you, what would it be?
What we need is we need to continue our, like scale up our projects with chicken coops. We need support on social media to get, like more people interested. We need support in designing environmental education, workshops or materials. And yeah, those are the things that we mostly need for our projects.
We have 2 sets of partners. We have the in situ partners like Zoila carrying out the work, or like Pedro at the resort, Marinia. And then we have financial partners that support those in situ partners. So we have 2 groups of partners. They work together. In situ partners carry out the projects. The financial partners support those projects. And we can't do anything without both. Nothing gets done.
Yeah, it's a good point. Well, thank you so much for your time, Cindy and Dr. Sanderson. Thank you so very, very much.